Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to PlayLoad. This is all my video game pickups for the month of April 2025. So this month, not a ton of stuff, but obviously some big items. We got some packages here. I got a trip to Germany in the middle of all of this, although I didn't come away with much from there. But still, we got some stuff from all over the place. So we're just going to go ahead and start at the beginning, which was at a convention, Midwest Gaming Classic. Before we do that, though, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, as well as check out all the social media stuff in the description. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, my travel channel, etc. I appreciate the support on those platforms. Thank you so much. Let's get into it. So as I said, I went to Midwest Gaming Classic. I was invited as a guest. It's up in Milwaukee. I kind of organized it for a bunch of my buddies so they could all have like a great time. And, you know, while I was at the convention itself, I'm kind of like running around doing several things. It was fun having a panel and all that sort of stuff. However, I wasn't really... you're ever in this situation, you're just kind of not in the mood to really be buying anything. So I'm like having a great time at the show, but my wallet was just, I felt like keeping it closed. So I really didn't buy anything at the show. So the show gave me some free stuff, and I also got some stuff here at the end, as you can see, at MGC, although I didn't buy this stuff. So I walked away without spending any money, which was very bizarre. But that said, I still got some items, so I thought you'd like to see them just real quick. We got my badge here. This was like a big Dreamcast themed year. MGC is a great show, by the way. If you ever get the chance, go on out. It's like, I would put it up there as one of the best retro game conventions in the US. It's like that, Portland Retro Game Expo, probably Siege, Southeast Game Exchange, Game On in Phoenix. These are like the best ones, in my opinion. So it's cool that it's relatively speaking, it's in my backyard because I live in Chicago. So, and of course, the guy who runs it is Dan Lucen, who's an awesome guy. The guy who actually created the Dreamcast indie scene. He created Feet of Fury. That was the first release ever. I had him in a video when I was talking about the anniversary of the Dreamcast indie scene and all that. So if you're curious about that, I have done a video on it. Anyway, yeah, so this is his convention. And funny enough, that is just a coincidence. He and I did not know each other through that. That was just kind of realized during. But anywho, he also gave me some other stuff. I got a beanie that says Midwest Gaming Classic on it, and a mouse pad. And actually, this mouse pad will be useful because the one I have is very much dying. So very cool. I believe the font that they use for Midwest is, I want to say Mystrial. I think that's the font that Sega was using for Shenmue, not originally, but whenever they had to reference the game ever since then, because it's just a public domain font. But anyway, yeah, so thank you very much to the people at Midwest Gaming Classic, and trust me, we're going to get back to that in a minute. Okay, moving on though. If you guys saw my previous episode of PlayLoad, you'll know I picked up a new console, the Game Wave, which was a Canadian-engineered and released console. It came out in Canada, and it technically came out in the US, though it was a lot more limited in its release here. To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever seen one in the US that wasn't already owned by somebody. Like, I don't remember ever seeing an ad for it. I don't remember ever seeing it in stores, anything like that. But all the same, it is the only Canadian-released console ever. Like, the only one that ever originated in Canada. And so I kind of always wanted it, but even in Canada, I don't remember ever seeing one. And then very recently, last month, a buddy of mine who's, you think I'm bad when it comes to, you know, getting all this stuff and being something of a hoarder or projected as one. This dude's much worse. My buddy Snowman, who's in my Discord. Go hang out with him, talk to him, he's cool. We did a little trade. I was just kind of getting rid of some crap, and he was just like, I'll take that. And I was like, well, what do I get? He's like, you get my crap. And that crap was a Game Wave. Though the one he gave me, though, was missing some stuff. Most notably, this thing. The Game Wave, the console, this is such a dumb design, and it should really tell you everything. This little plastic box attaches to the Game Wave. And when I say attaches, I'm using quotations, because there's nothing to actually attach it with. It just physically fits in the shape next to it. I'll show you this in some coverage in a second here, but like, that's it. And what it is just a little plastic box that holds the remote controls that are the controllers for the system. Now, when he gave me that Game Wave, it did not have this. And I knew this was supposed to be a thing, but I was like, man, like, where am I going to get that? You know, where am I going to find, who would have just this thing? And I did what I rarely ever do. I just went to eBay. And one guy had just this thing. And he only wanted like $10 for it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. So I think the guy was thrilled because I imagine that thing had been sitting on eBay for... Because, like, who realistically needs this thing? Oh, yes, I need to complete my Game Wave. Please hook me up. So I probably could have lowballed to, like, $1 and he would have taken it. But whatever, I paid the man $10 and I got this thing. And he threw in all these remote controls, too. Like, I actually had controls. I think he was just desperate to get rid of this because he probably had the system, lost it, probably knew what it was, but was like, what do I do with this? But anyway, so I was happy about that because it completes my Game Wave-ish. But speaking of that, once I was kind of in that mode of buying some junk on eBay for my Game Wave, I was looking around at Game Lots, and Game Wave games are not expensive, man. There's only like 14 titles on that system, and I think the only one that has any value, quote unquote, there's a VeggieTales game that I think goes as high as like $30. Most of the games are just a few bucks because nobody cares. So I got 2 lots. One was just the single game called Lock 5. This was, I don't know if I paid more than $5 for this, honestly. Most games are like this. They're just very basic point and click type of puzzle stuff. Like, this is not top tier game quality entertainment, but it doesn't matter. I was like, I just want to boost my library a little bit. And then I found one guy with a lot of 4 sealed games, and it was only like $20 for the lot. And I was like, I doubt I can realistically do better. So these are all sealed, and I'm probably going to keep them sealed because, like, I'm never going to, like, there's probably not going to be a big Game Wave night at my house, you know? But we've got 4 Degrees, The Arc of Trivia, Volume 2. We've got Rewind, Relive the Events of the Past, which is just some interesting stuff on the cover. You've got what I'm pretty sure is an atomic explosion, George W. Bush with Bono, Tiananmen Square Massacre, and I'm pretty sure behind them is firefighters on 9/11. It is a strange series of images to be on like a kid's trivia game. But either way, whatever, that's what's there. We got Sudoku, which Sudokus have obviously existed for a long time, but I kind of remember around this time when the system was relevant that this is when Sudokus kind of blew up in the US. Like, the boomers suddenly got into it. So that actually kind of makes sense. And then finally, a game called Click. Like I said, everything's point and click. So yeah, I decided to expand my massive Game Wave library. I doubt I will go beyond this point. There are Game Wave games I certainly do not have. VeggieTales is actually one of those examples. Do I care? I don't know. No point in my life did I sit down and be like, man, if only I had a full Game Wave set. There's actually, I want to say it's Korean. I think there's a Korean exclusive Game Wave game. I think. Or no, sorry, that's India. I'm thinking of the Nuon. Nuon has a Korean exclusive one. India had an exclusive Game Wave game. Good luck for getting that. Snowman, though, actually has all of them other than that one. So, big spender. Anyway, so I'm just happy that I got some stuff. I think that when I eventually do a Game Wave like recap video, retrospective video, that'll make the video a little better, and we can all just sit there and point and laugh at the only Canadian console ever produced. Come on, guys. Our brothers to the north, please. Have Tim Hortons design a console. Do something. You can do this. I believe in you. Come on. Your legacy cannot beat a Game Wave. Please, try harder. The Tim Hortons console. KFC can do it, and they never released the thing. Tim Hortons can do it. I believe in you. All right. Moving on. Sorry to my Canadian brothers. Okay. Being international, speaking of all that, I told you guys I took a trip to Germany. I actually was in Berlin for about a week. Now, Berlin's a great city. That is my favorite part of Germany, hands down. And I wasn't really there for video game purposes. I was there to film a bunch of footage and take care of other objectives. But I had like a day where I was like, yeah, I could maybe do a little game hunting here, which wasn't super easy because I didn't have access to a car. German train systems are famously terrible. The thing is, people think Germans are good at trains. They're not. The Germans will claim they are until you actually go there, and then they're like, Okay, yeah, you got us. We're not good at trains. We like people to think we are, but we actually really suck at it. And to be fair, Americans are terrible at it too, but everybody knows we're bad at it, whereas the Germans are just genuinely terrible at it, and they, for some reason, have this image that they're amazing. Point is, it was not easy to get around on anything other than foot, and I was not willing to pay for Ubers just to go check out a game store. So I was like, okay, I'll do what I can. And there was really only one I could walk to within range of where I was staying. It was called World of Games. It was a cool store, but inside the store, it was like a small little store run by, I'm pretty sure the guy was Turkish, and he only spoke German, and I'm pretty sure Turkish. And so I couldn't really communicate with him, but a lot of people in Germany speak English, like a lot. Like, even if I go to my YouTube analytics and it tells you where people are watching, the number one country is the US for obvious reasons, the UK, Canada, then Germany, and then Australia. Like, English proficiency in Germany is extremely high. This guy just happened to not qualify. So while I was in there, he starts asking me questions, and I just said, sorry, sprechen Sie English. And he had to say, he just nods no. And then because there's other people in the store, they're like, oh, I do. Do you need me to translate? And I was just like, yeah, sure. And then we go back and forth, basically like, are you looking for anything? Oh, I'm just browsing. Do you take credit cards? No, I only take cash. Would you let me go to an ATM if I need it? Yes, absolutely, of course, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, cool store. The problem is the store was like the size of a closet. It was very small, and it was clear this guy was super into the hobby, and you love to see that. You just love to see a guy who's like, yeah, man, this is my thing. I love retro video games, especially in places that are not known for good video game selections. Like, I'm sorry to Germany, it's not really known for being very good at that. But this guy was super into it. And he kind of had everything. It was just one of those stores you walk in and it's just, you feel like stuff's about to fall on you because there's just so much stuff in there. Like, we're talking, this store was so congested, I couldn't even film in there. Like, I wanted to. I wanted to film just some clips and everything, but it's like you're just kind of wall to wall, bumper to bumper. I couldn't really do anything about it. So I'm looking around trying to find anything, and you can tell there was like the core of infrastructure at one point. Like, oh, this will be where PS2 games are. This will be where Xbox is. But over time, well, where does it fit? Just put it there. And you can tell that's just how his store had turned into. And if I could speak German and I had a specific request, he's that type of guy. You could tell I'd be like, I'm looking for this title. And he'd go into some pile in the back and pull it out. Be like, yeah, I got this, 16 years ago. Here you go. Like, he seemed like that kind of guy. But since I lacked the language skills and I was getting a little claustrophobic, admittedly, I was like, I can't do this. But I would say, check it out, because if you are more patient than me, and of course you can speak German or have someone with you that does, you'd probably find some treasure in there. Like, there were things I was spotting, like PS2 games. Like, one of the ones I've talked to you guys about in the past, there's a PS2 European exclusive game called Seven Sins, which is like The Sims for adults. And he had it. It's a very expensive game now. And his prices were crazy reasonable. Like, because he clearly had been sitting up there for years. And it was like, oh, that's, €10 or whatever it was. And I was like, dude, I would have bought that in a heartbeat if I didn't already own it. Like, he clearly had stuff that I would have bought. I just couldn't dig through it. You're probably like, where's all this going? Well, ironically, I walked out of that store without buying anything for the reason I stated. But as I'm walking back to my hotel, I spotted one of those little, and I just want to tell you that store because I wanted to give them a shout out because it was a cool store. But nearby that store, there was just one of those like generic, like, we fix it or you fix it or something generic name like that. And it's like, they repair phones or whatever. I never usually go in those stores, so I don't have a reason to. But for some reason, the guy had a bunch of like N64 and PS2 stuff in a window. And I was like, all right. So I walk in, and I feel like that stuff only existed because the idea was just try to lure you in and just be like, oh, you like this? Maybe you'll buy a phone. I guess. I don't know. But anyway, so I looked at what game selection he had, and it was just, mostly it was like, and this is the most common thing in the UK and mainland Europe when you're going into retro games, is PS2. It's everywhere. For logical reasons. But he had this like big stack of PS2 like inside of like a wooden case or whatever, and I'm just kind of going through it, and it's the same stuff. It's a lot of cheap stuff, a lot of sports stuff, a lot of like, the same old things. Nothing that was particularly interesting. And I was about to leave, and then I saw one, and I was like, wait a minute. And I went and I pulled it out, and it was it, and I grabbed it. I got Pro Evolution Soccer 2014. You might be like, that's what this led up to. A football game or soccer game. You wasted our time with this long story to show us soccer. Sort of. No. I got excited about this for one very particular reason, because a lot of you probably do know why this is special, and some of you probably do not. This is the last European, or actually the last official PlayStation 2 release ever. This was the last game that ever came out on the system in any part of the world. It's always a sports game, man. Those things just linger forever. But yeah, this came out in 2013 on the PlayStation 2. Think about how long of a time span that is. The PlayStation 2 launched in 2000, so this came out 13 years later. I really just wanted it because it is the last official release, but the guy didn't seem to know what it was, because all the games were just like €3 to €5 a piece, just like whatever. And I'm sure it was just, oh, sports game, whatever, throw it in there. So I was happy to get that, because this is kind of an expensive game now. Like, it's like a $50 game-ish equivalency, but a few euro, hey, I'll take it. All right. That's what that whole story was. That's all I got out of Germany. It's not all I got out of Europe. I got some packages here. These came from Europe, specifically the UK. But yeah, that's all I ended up picking up in my time there. So we got some packages, as I said. The first one up here comes from my buddy Alistair. Now, he was cool enough to send this to me for free. For, I guess you would call it the purposes of review, even though I'm not really reviewing it, but I think you guys are going to like this. If I can get it out here. Now, Alistair, oh, there it is. It's real. Okay, I'm going to hide it for a second. Alistair is cool. He's also in my Discord, though he doesn't talk nearly as much as he should. But he's an indie developer. I've met him a few times. Actually, I met him at MGC once. Based out of Scotland, I believe. And he makes indie Dreamcast games. So I've done videos on him. Flea 1, Flea 2, Tapeworm, Disco Puzzle, I think. He does some indie games, and he runs a company called Low Tech Games. And, you know, that's all fine and cool. But on April 1st, he did an announcement of a new release, and I was like, well, that can't be real. It's April 1st. But I've never known Alistair to be the kind of guy to, like, mess with people, so it was kind of strange. And then I talked to him, he's like, yeah, doing an April 1st announcement probably wasn't really smart for what I was doing, but whatever, I did it. And I got all excited about it. I'm like, so this is real. You actually did this. Yeah, I actually did this. Okay. What do I need to do to get one? He's like, I'll just send you one. You know, I was prepared to do some horrible things, like buy it. But he was cool enough to send it. Anyway, so yes, what did he get? What did I get? This is called the Parasite Pack, or the N-Gage. Homie released a new N-Gage game. Can you believe it? It's a compilation of his previous games. It's got Flea 1, Flea 2, and Tapeworm. Which, again, I've done videos on all three of those on the Dreamcast versions. So there's not really anything else I can do with this. But, dude, it's an N-Gage game! Now, if you're like, what is an N-Gage? The N-Gage was a handheld platform made by Nokia, the Finnish mobile phone company. I am one of the 6 people on this planet that had one when it was relevant. So, like, I've never even done a proper video on it, but long and the short of it, when I was a kid, yeah, she was high school, whatever, you know, cell phones were starting to blow up, and they were supposed to be more and more required for you to have one. I was the weird kid that didn't want one. And my mom was the weird mom who's like, no, you need one. And so she goes out, and she's like, I'm updating all our phones, I'm getting new phones. I was like, whatever, I don't care. You need a phone. And so she comes back, even though I said, no, I don't want a phone. She shows up with an N-Gage, and she's like, here, take it. It plays video games. You'll like it. And I was like, I don't want it. Stupid kids. But anyway, so she got me an N-Gage, right? And it came with a copy of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and it was my phone for a while. Kind of a messed up phone, honestly, but it's actually a pretty cool gaming platform as far as the amount of content it has. But I didn't really buy any games for it. I didn't play anything on it. I just kind of used it in a limited capacity as a phone. And then one day, I think it was like 2005, GameStop, Nokia just kind of said, we're done with the N-Gage, it's over. And so GameStop starts clearing out all their stuff. I remember going in there with like, maybe it was like $60, $70 in cash, something like that, because I think I was going to buy some game that I was kind of there for. But N-Gage games had been like 40 or 50 bucks. GameStop was getting rid of them for like $2 a piece. And I sat there with the amount of cash I had, I was like, dude, I can buy like half the library right now, and I actually own an N-Gage. So I looked at it, and I was like, all right. So I just go through the clearance bin, and I pull like every single title. I walk up to the counter, and I just put it out down, and I was like, you actually own an N-Gage? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, well, cool. He's like, just so you know, like, they're done. Like, it's over. Like, they're not going to make new games. I was like, I know, so I'm getting these now. He's like, all right, fair enough. He's like, but, you know, GameStop as a company, we're getting rid of all this stuff. So if you like the N-Gage, go to our other stores, see what else you can find. So I looked, I did my homework. I found out there was only like, I want to say like 80 games, if that, ever released. I don't remember the number off the top of my head now, but I knew it at the time. So I'm driving around all these stores, picking up every single game I didn't have. Then I started being like, well, I'm obsessive. So let's see what games were released that didn't come out in the US or that I can't find. There was a couple of international releases, Sega Rally, etc. And I found these online, and I was like picking them up for like $3. I bought Sega Rally for the N-Gage, sealed back in the day, for $3. Shipped to the United States from Australia. Like, nobody cared about this system. And I thought I was done until years later I found out there was a single game I did not have called Warhammer. Shout out to Pete Dorr, because he's another YouTuber. He was doing some video and he showed that he had it, and I thought it was a rumor. I didn't even think that game ever really existed, and to this day I don't have it. Sadness. There was also a very hard one to find called Flowboarding, which was a temporary pack-in, cart only, in just Finland. And I do have that. I found that only a few years ago. It's not an expensive game if you can find it. Finding it's a trick. Anyway, point is, I do quite like the N-Gage. I think it is a very underrated, bizarre system. And to that end, Alistair hooked me up. So the funny thing about this is, and I was talking to him a little bit, he only made 100 copies of this. And you might be like, oh, I better get on that. You might be too late. He told me it's sold out like almost immediately, much to his shock. I imagine he'll do another printing, because he was not anticipating that happening. Because, like, really, like, who is going to sit down and be like, I need copies of N-Gage games? You might as well just produce GameWave games at that point. But, yeah, so there is a new N-Gage release out there. If you are one of the people into the N-Gage, pick it up. This is real. This was not an April Fool's joke. This one is still sealed. I don't know if I'm going to open it or not. I probably will. But, man, it's just so cool to have a new N-Gage release. That's really cool. For like the amount of time I've put into that system mentally, it's just very, very cool. And I have number 79 out of 100. So thank you, Alistair, for that. Now, moving on, we have another package here. This one we won't talk about as long, because this is going to get its own separate video. This comes from Orcface Games. Orcface Games is a company also based in the UK. And they made a new Dreamcast game. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's getting very hard to track all the Dreamcast indies now, because it used to be there was like 1 or 2 players in that game. And, you know, I was close with them, and they would reach out, and we would talk. And any developer would just work with one of those companies. And so it was always kind of, there was a network. You know what I'm trying to say? Now, more and more people are just producing these themselves in very limited print runs. And if nobody tells me about it straight up, then I never hear about it in the first place. But that's kind of what happened here, because Orcface Games, I guess they released this back in January of this year. But what ended up happening is they reached out to me like a month ago, and they're like, hey, are you interested in this game? And I was like, yes. And I'm like, all right, cool, we'll send you one. So here it is, and we're going to be doing a video on it soon enough. Get past the protective layer. We have, double packaging. Okay. Yeah, oh, I like that, the custom labeling there. All right, rip that inside. We have, there it is, the Storied Sword for the Sega Dreamcast. I have copy number 74 of 500, and here I have copy number 79 of 100. Bite the Chili Productions. Yeah, so I obviously haven't played this game yet. We will definitely do that. There will be a separate video specific on this. I love to cover all the Dreamcast indies. I like the initial look at the artwork. We have a QR code. You can get more information, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, man, Dreamcast indies are kind of starting to increase again, which is kind of neat for me, because I love covering them and talking about it. I love the Dreamcast, obviously, celebrating it and everything. And, of course, this is a pressed release. I think that's kind of what has changed, is that pressing these used to be more of an effort. And I don't know why it has suddenly gotten cheaper to do that, or easier to do that, but it appears that it has, and so you're suddenly getting more of them. Either way, very cool. But, yeah, stay tuned. There will be another video on that. And, again, huge shout-out to Orcface Games. Now, moving on. We got 2 remaining items, as you can see here. There's nothing hidden about them at all, except for the story. So this harkens back to MGC. These were given to me at MGC by a group called Free Geek, which is effectively an objective. It's a mission, more or less. I don't know exactly where they're based. I know this one particularly is the Twin Cities one, or Minnesota, like Minneapolis, St. Paul. Free Geek, to my understanding, operates as like a recycling center where they basically take in electronic donations, old computers, old video game consoles, speakers, whatever it is, electronics in general. And they do their best to refurbish them, restore them, give them a second life. And if they can't, they break them down for parts, you know, just like down to the basic metals and plastics and everything, recycling and processing. But they have a little store too. So if you ever see a Free Geek like store, check it out, because they're usually just electronic stores, kind of where everything's discounted because it was all donated material and, you know, worked on and recycled. A lot of volunteers function there. What ended up happening in this case is there is a member in my Discord. Again, you should join my Discord. Her name is Potato Queen. And she reached out and she was like, hey, so here's what I do. Here's my job, blah, blah, blah. And just like I just described. And so she was like, yeah, so we bring in stuff. And I found a few things I think you might like. Technically, we cannot resell these. So they would be deemed trash. And I'd rather they go to you. And I was like, okay. And the first thing up here was this. This is just a Dreamcast shell. This is not actually a Dreamcast. There is no hardware in this. You look inside, it's just... See, it's not even attached. Like there's just the plastic. Now, what's the deal with that? Why does that matter? Initially, it wouldn't have been a big deal. Like they took the parts out to go put into another system, etc., and make functional units. But I think it was her that noticed this. On the back, there is this sticker that says "Property of Sega Enterprises USA Incorporated," has a barcode, a serial number, and then if found, please contact, and a phone number. I have to admit, she had me stumped. I don't know what the origin of this Dreamcast would have been. You know, at first I thought kiosk unit, but then I also know that kiosk units don't look like that, and kiosk units were also version 0. This was clearly a revision 1. I thought maybe a test console, but there's nothing else to indicate that. So it's kind of like, you know, what exactly was this? And the truth is, I don't know. And so if anybody out there can best me on this, I would love to know. It's just a display piece, obviously, because really the only thing that makes it special is that actual sticker. But she was like, we have to toss it, so you can just have it if you want. I was like, yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. But then this, of course, was the real winner. This is a video game console called the Fairchild Channel F. Second gen system. I've never had one before. We'll do a video on this at some point. Kind of a short-lived platform. Not a ton of games for it. But they got this into the store in the box. It's in beautiful shape, but it didn't work properly. And so they had their tech guys working on it, trying to repair it as much as possible. And ultimately, the flaw with it, I'm no expert on this, but basically what she said is there's a proprietary chip in these things because they use RF video output. And there's a chip in there that's designed to enhance the picture quality as much as possible for the time in which it was produced. But the chip is proprietary, and she referred to it as unobtainium. That chip is not functional. So as a result, you will get a picture signal off of this thing, but it's dreadful. And so she was like, we can't really sell it because it's technically broken in that regard. It functions in every other way. It's in great shape, but yeah, the unobtainium chip is not replaceable. Believe me, we would, but we can't. So if you'd like it, it's yours, mostly as a display piece. And I was like, yes, absolutely. So it comes with the box, obviously. And inside we have the console, power supply, the cable, and we even got one game, which was Video Kart 3. These are not great names, but yeah, it's a cool little device there. Obviously, this thing comes off, and underneath you would have these controllers, which look like wands almost. It is very definitive 1970s second-gen video game console stuff, but very cool piece to add to the collection. And now it means I have to start looking for Fairchild Channel F games. And believe it or not, I actually know one store in particular that my buddy Sunshine and I, maybe Joseph the Heart Off Destroyer, are going to have to go hit up to find those. Because we know a place. We know a place. But anyway, that'll do it. Also, shout out to Captain Potato, again, in my Discord, because he's the only person I know who's actually like super into the Fairchild Channel F. There is somebody on this planet super into the Fairchild Channel F who's under the age of like 70. And his name is Captain Potato. He lives in Idaho. Are you surprised? Anywho, shout out to him. All these people are in my Discord. Hang out with them, talk to them. But yeah, huge shout out to Free Geek as well. I'll put a link in the description to like basically what I understand to be their objective mission. If you like have a bunch of used electronics you just want to get rid of, and instead of going to Goodwill and just chucking them there, if you want them to be like restored properly and given more of a real chance at a new life other than Goodwill's temporary area, try finding a Free Geek. I don't even know if we have one in Chicago. I don't think we do, sadly. But yeah, you should check that out. Anywho, thank you guys very much for watching. Obviously, thank you to Orcface Games. Thank you to Alistair. Links in the description to both of them. Thank you to Midwest Gaming Classic. And obviously, once again, thank you to Free Geek. And thank you guys very much for watching. If you guys could do me a favor, please like the video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, and then check out all the social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord. Again, big one on there. Patreon, Spreadshirt. I appreciate the support on those platforms. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.